Okay, our second talk will be given by Simon from Max Planck Institute.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Simon Rasniewski from the Max Planck Institute for Informatics. This is joint work with colleagues at Max Planck and at the Hasso-Plattner Institute in Potsdam. So this is an information extraction session. So everyone knows the classical IE paradigm. We have a text. We run our favorite IE tool on it, and we get out facts. So in this case, from the sentence, Obama has two daughters, Malya and Sasha, we get two facts, that Malya is a child of Obama and Sasha is a child of Obama. Usually what we also get out is a confidence score, which tells us how likely these extractions are correct. But what is missing in the classical IE paradigm is, are these all, or what is the coverage of the extractions? Why would there be differences in coverage? Well, let's see this example again. Obama has two daughters, Malya and Sasha. Sounds like these are probably all children. Contrast this with the sentence, Jolie brought her children, Shiloh and Knox, to school. Are these all children of Jolie? Well, it's very plausible that she has other children which are just too young or too old to be brought to school. So we would have less confidence that these are all. Or another example, consider the sentence, New York consists of the districts Manhattan, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. Again, sounds like these are probably all. The formulation consists of conveys that. And in contrast, important districts of Hong Kong are Wan Chai, Kowloon City, Yau Tsim Mong. So this, by saying important districts, we are conveying that there are probably more which are not so important, so they're not mentioned in the sentence. And why is it important to know about the coverage of information extraction? Well, I'll give three reasons. So the first one is resource efficiency. Suppose we run IE on these three documents, we get out some districts of New York, and if we also get out the information that the coverage is high from these three documents, we can stop further extraction. If on the other hand we extracted districts of Hong Kong, these three here, we find the coverage is low, then we should go to more resources. So we need to shoulder some additional cost, but which we are probably willing to pay if we want high recall. Second reason is adjusting IE thresholds. So IE actually looks often like this. So we get a list of candidates that at the bottom somewhat, it's arbitrary to say where do we cut off. So we need to cut off somewhere. Often we choose 0.9 or 0.8 confidence. If you have a document in here which contains a subset of the high-ranked candidates and also has a high confidence in coverage, that these are probably all, then we can use that as additional evidence to know where to threshold the list of candidates. And the third argument why coverage matters is negation and completeness in question answering. So suppose we want to do question answering over our extracted statements. We want to answer a question like which US presidents were married only once, or which countries didn't participate in any UN missions, or for which cities do we know all districts. For all these questions, if we don't know about coverage, we can't really answer them. So we don't know whether a president was only married once, or whether we just didn't extract the other spouses, whether we didn't extract the participation in UN missions and so on. That's a general problem of the open world assumption of information extraction. And that's the focus of our research, where we have a long line of papers. So this about the motivation. Then how actually can we do coverage estimation? Our approach is based in linguistic theory, Grice's maxims of cooperative communication. In particular, two maxims, the maxim of quantity, which says, in general, when we communicate, we want to make our contribution as informative as required. So when we talk about children of Obama, if he has three daughters, we would say that there are three. We wouldn't just say there are two, although logically it's not wrong to say he has two daughters when he has three, but usually we convey the maximal information as relevant in the context. On the other hand, there's a contrasting maxim of relevance, so only convey what is relevant. Don't say everything you know. So in the sentence, Jolie brought her children, Shiloh and Knox, to school. If she has more children in the schooling context, it's not relevant if they're too young or too old to be brought there. So these two maxims can guide us on how to estimate coverage. So the question we ask is, can we determine when we are on the left side, so when full coverage is relevant, or when we are on the right side, so when some facts are left out because they're irrelevant. And we formally approached that as a classification problem for full coverage. So given a subject S and a predicate P, we look on the one hand on the real-world set of P objects for S, which we call here RW. And on the other hand, we assume a perfect IE method from a text, which gets out all the objects that are stated in the text. So this is GTE, ground truth extractions. And then our decision problem is for a given text segment T, is it the case that the perfect extraction, the objects it finds out, are all the objects which also hold in reality? And if that's the case, then we say this text has full coverage for the subject and predicate. And our experimental setup to approach this problem is for predicates, we choose 5 Wikidata predicates: child, spouse, band member, educated at, employer. As subjects, we take popular entities from Wikidata, and as text segments, we take sentences and paragraphs from the Wikipedia article of those subjects. For the ground truth extraction method, we use a combination of open information extraction, predicate dictionary, and surface name matching. And for the real-world objects, we use distance supervision, so we assume that for the very popular entities, Wikidata actually knows all the objects. And we use 2 simple classifiers, so SVMs based on n-grams, which allows us to see interpretable features, and LSTMs on the word embeddings of the text. And we have 3 baselines: random, which just flips a coin to decide whether a text segment is having full coverage or not. And then 2 plausible, simple approaches are to say, well, the longer a text segment, the more likely it's complete. So let's just say the longest ones are complete. And the other one is to say those text segments contain the most proper names are the ones which are complete. And here are the results of that method. So at the top, the 3 baselines: random, the longest ones, and the number of proper names. And at the bottom, our LSTM. And this is the F1 score on predicting the text segments which have full coverage. So the data set is imbalanced, therefore the random baseline has very low scores. And there are 3 messages from these results. So the first one is the simple baselines, just assuming that longer text segments have more coverage and those with more names have more coverage. They capture some signal. However, the texts capture a much stronger signal. And we also see that the task is not easy. So the LSTM here has F scores between 45 and 60. There's still a lot of space to the top. So here we see some features from the SVM, interpretable features. So what are n-grams that hint at a paragraph to contain full coverage? So a numeric term and grandsons hints that this paragraph talks a lot about family background, and in detail, then probably if it talks about grandsons, it also mentions all the children already. If there's a name and sons and daughters that are indicators. For spouses, indications married twice, second marriage, later married are keys, and similar for band membership and education. And here we see some example predictions for sentences. So he was the father of actor Pierre Renoir, Jean Renoir, and Claude Renoir. This is a typical biographical sentence which contains full coverage, and the LSTM gives this the highest confidence to have full coverage. On the other end, at the bottom, we see Genghis Khan was aware of the friction between his sons, particularly between 2 of them, indicates there are probably more. And from this moment, I'm no longer the king is Victor, my son. That's also something where the model doesn't have any confidence in this being having full coverage. There are likely more children. And the take-home messages are, so information extraction so far has only focused on confidence or precision, how likely what it is correct that it extracts. We make the case here that coverage or recall has similar importance, and we show 3 motivations. So for resource efficiency, knowing to how many sources to go, then for thresholding, when to discard extraction candidates, and for question answering with negation. And we show that linguistic theories give a handle towards doing this coverage estimation, and our experiments show that the estimation is feasible and that n-grams provide informative features. Thank you.
Questions? I have one. You said that you had SVN results, but I didn't see them.
I didn't put them because they were very similar to the LSTM. So the score was not much difference.
Hello, thank you for the talk. So I noticed that in your experiment, you take one sentence as a unit. Is it possible that you consider the whole context in a document, such that you might have more information to determine whether it is covering all the facts in the real world?
We look at two text units. So at the top, we see sentence level classification, at the bottom, paragraph level classification. And we originally also wanted to do document level classification, but the data set got too small. But in principle, that's a very sensible thing to do, yes.
So is there any plan to extend this to multi-document level? Like, because you can consider information from multiple documents, and then you can have a better idea of, because for example, in the application of populating a knowledge graph, you might consider multiple documents before you aggregate all the information and put it in a knowledge graph. Right?
Yes, we would like to extend this to document level. So that makes the annotation more challenging, but that's planned here.
Let's thank the speaker again.